Good morning. This is your stats sensei, Mr. Spensei, and I'm going over our latest quiz on display cussing and BSing on displaying data. And this will be a great review for what to do on your exam this coming Monday. So, two large corporations, A and B, hire many new college graduates as accountants at entry-level positions. In 2009, the starting salary for an entry-level accountant position was $36,000 a year at both corporations. At each corporation, data was collected from 30 employees who were hired in 2009 as entry-level accountants and were still employed at the corporation 5 years later. The yearly salaries of the employees in 2014 are summarized in the box plots below. So we have Corporation A, and then we also have Corporation B right there. It says write a few sentences comparing the distribution of yearly salaries at the two corporations. Now, remember, in our context here is the yearly salaries after 5 years, yearly salaries after 5 years. And we also know that they started at 36,000. Well, I'm just going to tell you, it's just a really good idea to write the phrase on your paper, cuss, and then context, and then check it off to make sure that you actually have included all of those. All right. Easiest way to handle context, and it probably should be the very first thing, is a restatement of the question. It says, all right, the distribution of yearly salaries at the two corporations. So I want to start off with yearly salaries, and really it's the yearly salaries after 5 years. So the median salaries for the two corporations after 5 years, there it is, salaries for two corporations after 5 years. I have my context. Once I have it done, once I've done it once, I don't have to ever mention it again unless it just helps me with my sentences. Okay, the median salaries are approximately the same. Guess what? Similar, the same. There's my comparison word. So I have context. I have both of them, but I have to be specific, and there's my specific. I give a size of 51,000 or approximately that. So I've cussed both corporations and I was specific. I got all my credit for center there. Corporation A has two outliers. By the way, this is where I see that it's about 50,000. If you have 50,500 or 52,000, that's something along those lines is going to be fine. And notice corporation on unusual features has two outliers. On corporation B, I don't see any outliers. I don't see any unusual features. But corporation A has two outliers on the high side of the distribution, with one at 70 at the other at 80. Guess what? I was specific. And I just talked about the outliers for corporation A. I haven't discussed B. While corporation B has no outliers, guess what? Now I've hit both of them, corporation A and corporation B. Notice I have to have comparison words for center and spread. So these two have to have corporation words. For U and S, I can use while. While is not a comparison word, but it is for center and spread. The next thing, corporation B salaries appear to be reasonably symmetric. So here we are shape, and we're talking about corporation B. And if I look at corporation B, I see 50% of the data is in this spread, which is about 50% here. You might have said slightly skewed to the left, and that would have been fine. That would have been close enough because it's very difficult to tell on box plots unless it's extreme. While corporation A appeared to be slightly skewed to the right due to the outliers on the high side. And once again, it's like, yep, 50% here is more spread out than 50% down here. So definitely a little bit more spread out. Again, box plots a little bit difficult sometimes. So on this particular problem, the shape was actually considered extraneous, but I wanted to show you what to do. Then it says the salaries lie with an interval of 36,000 with a high of 80,000. 36,000 to a high of 80,000 with a range of 44,000 at corporation A. All right, so there's corporation A, 36,000 to 80,000. And remember, range includes outliers. So it goes all the way from lowest to highest. So the range includes the outliers. while the range at B is much less. Oh, there's my comparison word, is 20,000, and then I tell where the salaries lie. I did not have to say that where the salaries lie, but sometimes it's helpful. But I gave my range, and I was specific for both of them. So at that point, I don't even have to talk about IQR, although it's nice. So the interquartile range of Corporation A is, there's my comparison word, larger at 13,000, while Corporation B has an interquartile range of 9,000. All right. And once again, I'm kind of estimating those distances. I can't read them exactly, but A clearly has a higher IQR. And so it's pretty easy to address both IQR and range. Only had to address one of them. I was specific in all cases and I gave the measurements. So we're good to go on that. All right, so that would have gotten me all of my points. And on your test, just so you know, this center will be worth 5, unusual will be worth 5, shape will be worth 5, and spread will be worth 5. So that's 20 points for this particular problem. If you don't have context, you'll lose 10 points right off the bat. So but each part of that's worth 5 points. But if you don't have the context, it doesn't add points. It just take away 10 points if it's not in context. So make sure you're in context, and it really helps to restate the question. All right, the next problem, part of that problem. Suppose both corporations offered you a job for $36,000 a year as an entry-level accountant. Based on the box plots, give why you might choose Corporation A. Well, what are we talking about? We're talking about salaries. Once again, I have to have context. So 5 years, at least 3 of the salaries. Guess what? I've talked about the fact that this is after 5 years, and I have the salaries. And when I look at it, here's a salary, and here's a salary, and here's a salary at Corporation A that are all higher than Corporation B. So I can make as much as 80,000 at Corporation A, where I'd max out at 60,000 at Corporation B. So 80, 70, and 65 are all higher than what I'd make at Corporation B. So at least 3 of the salaries are higher than all of the salaries are at Corporation B. Wow, that's really bad. Are higher than all of the salaries at Corporation B, which means I might be able to make more money at Corporation B if I end up being one of the highest salaries or highest performers at Corporation A. All right, obviously I got some typos in there, but basically there are 3 salaries that make more. If I wanted to be more specific, I probably should have said I can make as much as 80,000, and that's more than the 65,000 I can make at Corporation B. All right. So after 5 years is my context. So context would have been worth half of the credit, and then the answer would be the other half. All right. Based on the box plots, why might you accept Corporation B? Well, I noticed that Corporation A, the lowest person did not get a raise. They're still at 36,000, and I can make at least 41,000. So I'm assured of having a raise at Corporation B after 5 years, and I'm not assured of having a raise at Corporation A. So I might choose Corporation B because the lowest salary at B after 5 years is higher than the lowest salary at Corporation A. Guess what? I had context. All right. It appears that the same that some at Corporation A never received a raise and are still at the starting salary at 36,000, while it appears that an employee would be assured a raise at Corporation B. If I only had this first sentence, I would have gotten full credit because basically it's saying I got more money. But we really should be specifics. This is really good, helpful information. Make sure it's always in context, and sure enough, I have salary there. Okay. All right. The next thing. All right. It asks us to calculate outliers from a data set. Let's take a look at this. This is scenario 2. The consumer advocate conducted a test of two popular gasoline additives. Oh, there we go. We have gasoline additives. This is going to be my context here. There are claims that use of either of these additives will increase gasoline mileage in cars. All right, more context. A random sample of 30 cars was selected. Each car was filled with gasoline, and the cars were run under the same driving conditions until the gas tanks were empty. Distance traveled was recorded for each car. Additive A was randomly assigned to 15 of the cars, and additive B was randomly assigned to the other 15. The gas tanks of the car was filled with gasoline and the assigned additive. Cars were again run for the same driving conditions until the tanks were empties. The distances were traveled and recorded, and the difference in distance with additive A minus additive B was calculated. So here we have the difference in the distance. All right. The following table summarizes the calculated differences. All right, so note negative values indicate less distance was traveled with additive than without. So in other words, they actually went backwards. These actually got better gas mileage. All right, and we're supposed to, in this particular problem, we're supposed to show outliers first, and then we're supposed to graph it. All right, so determine if there were any outliers. And very, very important that I make sure that I have tell you whether I'm working with additive A or additive B. I can do that either in my sentence, or I can work it in half and break it down where this is additive A and this is additive B, but I have to have labels so I know that they're there. If they're not, I'm going to lose points, okay? So to get your points, I need you to write my equation. X is less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. Technically, I don't have to see that part, but I absolutely have to have X is less than Q1, which was 1, and they gave us that right here. Here's our Q1. Here's our Q3. All right. So X is less than 1 minus 1.5 times my IQR. And I showed my calculation there of 3. So X has to be less than negative 3.5. So I need this. That's the minimum for work shown. Then I have to have a comparison statement, and I also have to have this. Negative 10 and negative 8 are less than negative 3.5 and are the only two outliers on the low side. I have to have a comparison to my fence. I have to show the calculation of the fence, and I have to have that. All right, the calculation is going to be worth 2 points. The explanation is worth 3, or the comparison is worth 3, or will be on your exam. Here, I show my work again, and so I have X is greater than 4 plus 1.5 times 3, which is X is greater than 8.5. So right there, that's my 2 points for showing my work. And 9 is greater than 8.5 and is the only outlier on the high side. So let's take a look at that real quick. So I have a negative 8 and a negative 10 and a negative 8. And they're both below my fence of negative 3.5. So that's outliers on the low side. Then on the high side, I have 9 is above 8.5. So that's my only outlier on the high side. 5 and 7 are not outliers. So that right there, this comparison statement gives me 3 points. So this whole thing was worth 10. If you did not tell me that it was additive A outliers, you didn't label it, that's going to be a -5. Okay. Same thing over here. If you don't tell me it's B, you're going to lose 5 points. Right? So you lose half your credit just by not doing that, and you showed all this work. That's rough. So here we have X is less than, and we have our IQR is 25 minus a negative 2 because it's Q1 minus the negative 2. So that tells me I have an IQR of 27. So we have X is less than negative 2 minus 1.5 times that. So X needs to be less than negative 42.5. This right here will get me 2 points. Then I have my comparison statement where 3, no values are less than negative 42.5. No values less than negative 42.5. So no outliers on the low side. Matter of fact, negative 5 was my lowest value. All right. I do my calculation over here, and I have 25 plus 1.5 times 27, and I end up getting right here, that gets me 2 points. No values are greater than 65.5, so no outliers on the high side because our highest value on the table was 40, so there's no values above it. So no values below, because our lowest value is negative 5, and no value above because our highest value was 40. So there are no outliers on this one. So no values are greater than 65.5, so there are no outliers on the high side. So once again, there's my 3 points for my comparison. It asked me to graph it, okay? Well, you have to have labels on your graph. If you didn't have distance, preferably miles, but if you didn't have distance in miles, you lost 5 points. If you didn't have A and B labeled, you lost 5 points. And then the graphs themselves need to be shown. Make sure you're showing your outliers, your lowest value that's not an outlier, and your highest value that's not an outlier, and of course your highest value. If the fences fit, you should show them. If they don't fit, don't worry about it. I know that I needed a fence up here at 65. It doesn't fit on the graph. And then I need a fence at for additive B, and that's on the low side at negative 42, and negative 42 didn't fit. So the next thing says, which additive, A or B, would you recommend if the goal is to increase gas mileage in the highest proportion of cars? So now we're talking about percentages. Well, that means, to me, that means at 0, anything above 0 was a gain in percentage. So in this case, I gained 50% had a gain. In here, there's 25, there's 25, and there's 25. So 75% had a gain. So I would choose gasoline additive A, and there's my context again, over B because at least 75% of the cars traveled a greater distance with additive B, while more than 25 experienced a decrease with additive B. All right. But basically, its additive A had at least a 75 increase, which was greater than that of additive B, which is only about 50%. All right. Then it says, which additive A or B would you recommend if the goal is to have the highest average increase? All right. At this point, since I see that this is skewed, this is going to be pulled up to the right. And because of these outliers, this one is going to be pulled down below. So in this case, I would choose additive B. Additive A's outliers on the low side will lower the mean below the median of 3. So these outliers will pull me down on my median. In contrast, B is highly skewed to the right, and a mean that's going to be much greater than the median of 1. So I would choose additive B because it's going to have a greater mean than additive A. Please note, I had to choose a gasoline additive, and that gives me my context. Real important to have the context. 5 points for getting the right, 5 points for being you lose, it's a 10 points. This is worth 10 points, but you lose 5 points for not having the correct context. All right, this is your stats sensei. Glad you could join me. Thank you.